going to be very brief and save my time perhaps for question and answer later. But my name is Carol Rhodes, and I am a former enforcement officer for the Friend of the Court system. When I graduated from Western, I had several professors there that said, you know, something just doesn't seem right about the Friend of the Court system. Perhaps they had had some experience with it, I don't know. They said someone needs to get in there and see just what's going on. And I was a single mom, and I had experienced a lot of things that I could see that could use some work. And I thought, you know, I could be an effective enforcement officer. And so I was hired by the 37th Circuit Court, and as a long officer, I thought I could make a difference there, but I found out very soon what many of you already know, that it's not about the best interest of the children, but it's about money, and it's about federal funding, it's about tax dollars. The money that's paid to the children or collected for the children as child support money are matched by the federal government. And then there are incentives for different types of enforcement activities. And there are matching funds at state and local levels as well. And so the judges, each time that they grant or approve, or the Friend of the Court up someone's child support collection, they're actually padding their own pockets, because that comes back to them. It indirectly will come back. And I saw so many things that, as you and I probably already know, were blatant violations of the law, of our constitutional rights as parents. And yet there's no system of checks and balances to keep this from happening. And so it continues to happen. And the judges are well padded by the Friend of the Court enforcement officers and officials and workers, and they are there to promote the orders of the court and to collect. And we were told that there's no money in custody issues, so downplay that. So those issues were lost under the stack of hearings that we needed to set each week. We were rated as enforcement officers by how many people. When we went to court, we were in the capacity of the prosecutors, the prosecuting department, and we were rated by how many people we sent to jail that week, how many non-custodial parents we took out warrants on for their impending arrest, bench warrants, and on how much money we collected for child support, or how much our caseload would increase in collections as we when in our day-to-day operations. I saw records destroyed. I saw creative bookkeeping where, with computers, you could go through and an individual would have an arrearage, a back amount that they owed in child support, perhaps of $3,000 or $4,000 one day, and 2 or 3 days later, actually overnight, it could go to $30,000 arrearage, and the computers would take it back so it looked like that had been the original amount owed, and no one had to inform the payee or the payer that this change was made. These kinds of things happen. People would come in and they had a legal right to see their case file, and we were to take our case file to the deputy director or to the director, and they would go through and sort what the individuals were allowed to see, and only after the appointment they'd put them back in. And we weren't allowed to spend time with parenting time or custody issues because there was no money in it, and the court was overloaded with hearings as it was. It became more and more discouraging until the fact was that in order to do a job, you had to lie to parents, you had to denigrate non-custodial custodial parents, which in most cases were fathers. But worst of all, the kids suffered, and we were told that we were not social workers. The friend of the court is not the friend of the parents or the friend of the children or the friend of the people. It's the friend of the court, and it's there to enforce what the judge has ruled. And it was a money issue. Eventually, I wrote a book after working there for years and feeling that the only way I could actually be effective and help people is to go under the table and help them or call them. All our correspondence was monitored and all our phone calls were recorded. So it was really heart-rending because there were so many children that suffered, so many families that suffered. And even though I had been a single parent, even though I had spent time in safe place, I had gone through many of the things that oftentimes the Violence Against Women Act and some of the other now organizations are speaking up against. Still, I could see that the system was so skewed, and it was skewed against parents, but even more devastating, it totally devastated the children involved, and it made a system where there was always adversary. There was always a winner and a loser, and actually the children were always losers as well when the parents are constantly in litigation. Fighting, it can't help but affect the children. So I wrote the book, and of course I was blackballed in the department, and the book, Friend of the Court, Enemy of the Family, is mostly some case histories that had happened, just typical case histories. They are by far not the worst things that have happened, and since I wrote the book, I have known many, many more criminal and heart-rending actions that have been unfairly adjudicated by the court system, and yet the judge has no one to call him in and correct him if he does something that is in violation of the law. And the friend of the court being as well just an agent of the judge has nothing to gain by going against the system. And so again, it's encouraged that collections is the most important thing. I'm here mostly just to say that what these guys are saying is true. There aren't a lot of people that are willing to commit suicide in their career, which is pretty much what you'd have to do to be an enforcement officer and to really stand up for the kids and the parents and what is fair and for the law. But I want to say again that if you have questions, I would be glad to answer. I am just here to say that what these gentlemen have to say and so many more are just a drop in the bucket of some of the offenses that go on every day, day in and day out. And it's hard not to become callous to the situation when you work in it day after day. But once it's happened to someone that you love or someone that you've known, and you've seen how the children have been impacted in their lives, then you really can't stand back and say, I'm sorry, this is someone else's problem. Too often people say, well, the judges aren't always fair, but most of the time they do the right thing. And the friend of the court, they make mistakes, but most of the time they're well-meaning, they try to do the right thing. That's not really so. I think a lot of our citizens really don't want to hear and really don't want to see what's going on behind the scenes. They don't want to know where that tax money is going. They would rather just let someone else take care of that because it's too heart-rending to know that these things are going on. You have to do something about it, and we're all so busy that we don't want to make waves and be the one that tries to fight City Hall alone. But we all need each other, and we all need to stand up for the children and the parents that have been brutalized and stripped of their civil rights. And so I just want to say, if you have questions later, I'll be glad to address this. But please listen to what the other gentlemen have to say because it's right on.
only where the voice is low, but the room should be packed. And the room should be packed because most people don't realize that what these people have been telling you is a fact. And you really don't understand it until it happens to you. There's a young man right here. Can you stand up for me? Yeah, you. What's your name?
Jacob.
Huh?
Jacob.
Jacob. How old are you, Jacob?
11.
11. Okay. You sit down. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Correctional.
A who?
Correctional.
Okay. Good. Maybe we can use him. Are you his mom? Stepmother? Okay. Well, I asked him to stand up for a specific reason because I could leave here today and I could go home and I could make an anonymous phone call and say that you're abusing your kids and I would put you through a living hell. Your life would change from that moment on, whether you're guilty or whether you're innocent. And those of us who don't realize that this is a fact, we need to stop and listen to forums of this nature. The things that Derek has brought out and the things that Carol has brought out, this is all fact. And not only would her life begin a living hell, but she would start to spend all of her money to get her kid out of the system or to prove herself innocent because she's guilty simply because the allegations have been made. As I said, this room should be filled. There should be nothing but standing room only. But the problem with this is that most people don't realize that this takes place until they get that knock at the door. We have a document called Title IV, which is the Social Security Administration, yes, your tax dollars at work, that funds several different things, but two in particular. One, it funds child support collection, which is why House bills like 4564 that we have been trying to get passed here in the state of Michigan for almost 2 years, and we changed the number, we changed the wording, and we can never have it moved past committee. We always end up just 1 or 2 votes short of having bills that would make parenting equal on both sides for fit and willing parents. And the courts, the state, the nation says that what they're doing is, quote unquote, in the best interest of the child. Well, it's in the best interest of the child to remove the child from one parent and charge that parent that you removed them from. We say, well, Derek says, well, I'd like to, I couldn't pay child support, or they put child support. A lot of people like to say you need to step up to the plate and take care of your obligation. Well, I want to give you a quote right now that you can take to the grave and carry on, and that is, child support is what you do when your kids are with you. That's tucking your kids in bed at night. That's watching TV with them. That's eating pizza. That's them falling asleep in your lap. That's going to the beach. That's riding bicycles. It's going on vacation. All of those things cost money. But what's important is not how much they cost. The fact that your relationship with your child remains intact and gets stronger day by day, in the best interest of the child. Do you mean to tell me that our courts in this state and across this nation has your children's best interest at heart more so than their parents? I beg to differ. Why do we do this? Well, for one, because it is so profitable for the states to collect child support. Why we denigrate one parent and ostracize them from a relationship with their children. Not only do we denigrate that parent, we denigrate grandparents, we denigrate aunts, we denigrate uncles, we denigrate cousins, we denigrate the whole side of the family, that we reduced one parent to 3 days a month. I've written a book called Cheated, and it just came out this May. It's a documented account of parental alienation. Why did I write this book? Because I spent 16, 17 years working 2 full-time jobs, paying child support, and even with a joint custody agreement that the courts gave me, the courts took my visitation and gave me 1.5 days every 2 weeks. So I, in fact, spent the first 17 years, 18 years of my children's lives with them 3 days out of the month. And to step up and take care of my obligation, I worked 2 full-time jobs. The courts were never after me because I was behind in child support, because it was there. But I had knocked on the door to pick my children up. Even those 3 days, I would have to take my court orders and the police to get my children out of the house. Did the courts assist me? No, they didn't. You know why? Because the child support payment was coming in on a regular basis, and they had no reason to intervene. Well, is it not important to intervene when we have destroyed the relationship between one parent and their children? This is a question that we can't seem to get answered in Lansing. We can't seem to get answered in Washington, D.C. We have Hillary Clinton who decided that it takes a village to raise a child. Well, yes, it does. But that old African adage did not mean the state. It meant the extended family. The village is the aunts, the uncles, the grandparents, the great-grandparents, those of which our children will never get to know if we continue to allow the state of Michigan and states across this country from destroying family relationships for profit. If we want to know why we have forums like this, it's simply because the state of Michigan is making money off your children. Every child, every grandchild is worth dollars to the state. And they're worth so much to the state until they will destroy you to get your children. There's an issue of medication. Once a child goes into foster care, the very first thing, once they terminate parental rights, first of all, I thought that the state was here to work with children who were orphans. But it is, in fact, a fact that the state of Michigan terminates parental rights at a rate higher than any other state in the nation. The state of Michigan is manufacturing orphans. I have with me Miss Sally Borghese. I know she didn't know I was going to call her name, who has been fighting for 2 years to get her granddaughter out of the system. Now, they say that what they do with these children is in the best interest of the child, and their first order of business is family reunification. Well, if family reunification is the goal, why is grandmother being denied by the Supreme Court of taking her granddaughter home? They are at the point of terminating the parental rights of the child's mother. Well, that's fine. Grandmother is here. She's ready, willing, and able. The caseworkers have said in some cases she's too old, or because she helped a 4-year-old in the bathroom, she's overprotective. And these caseworkers have no families of their own, their kids out of college, making decisions that's destroying families for profit for the state of Michigan and states across this country. I mentioned medication because one of the first things they do when your child goes into foster care, and even in school, your kid can, normal childhood behavior. That's what it was called when we were children. The terrible twos, now there's a pill to stop that. You all know what the terrible twos are. We went through it. Your mother went through it. Your grandparents went through it. And the village has told the children that your children will have a stage in their lives where they'll be restless, they'll be here and there. You have to deal with it because this is the terrible two.